Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order and welcome those that are joining us live streaming again this morning. So I'm going to turn it over to Betty Ann for our consolidated budget.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Didn't all our directors just do a great job?
They did an awesome job.
You didn't want to try that motion again?
Well, I think we want to hear what you have to say first.
Well, that's a very good point. Thank you. So I just want to recap, and all of the budgets that you've received obviously have a number of initiatives, but this operational consolidated document wraps everything up nicely for you so that you can see, and we can highlight not only by department but by pressure category, and to see what really is requiring those changes. And you can see as similar to the dashboards from the individual departments, the transfer to reserves and the transfer from reserves rolled up into one. And certainly the transfer from reserves is for the most part generated in transportation, housing, and then the Bruce Works initiative. I want to highlight, of course, the budget increases by percentage, and you have already heard the overall, the 2.9, but you can see the salaries and how that is driving in each individual department, and actually a 4.2%. So you know that there have been other expenditures that have been offset to reduce that to 2.9, and you'll see that when we get into the analysis of the total organization. And then you can see what is by pressure category and by department, and really overall, with the exception of a couple of the council initiatives in the CAOs, the reduction and the maturing of the 150th celebration, that is changing that. And then in corporate services, the council initiatives are grants to the Grey Bruce Regional Health Centre and those commitments to the Wingham Hospital. And then in our initiatives, you can see as the changes, our service initiatives, and certainly driving that is in corporate services, in our corporate services with Bruce Works, and then in human resources, which you just heard from Director Nero. And otherwise, we are in a maintain service mode across the organization. It's really important to look at the percentages, and as a number of us gasped as we presented our initiatives and have those in the red. And then I think it's equally important to look at what those dollars, obviously when you start with a larger budget, the impacts of the dollar changes don't roll up in the same fashion. So it's important that we show you that variance not only in dollars, but in the percentage. But overall, the request for operational increase of $981,000, a 2.9%. I will draw your attention to this, the two tables at the bottom, which is just really a snapshot of bringing the capital and operating together. However, we show that in more detail by department in the document that I presented first yesterday to show you how that rolls up. And we'll go to that as our final review today. And then if we again go into the analysis for total department, what this will show you and this can't be the correct one that I'm looking at, so I'm going to go out of there. If you're on the Y drive, you will have the correct document, but I think we were... Those REFs we don't like to see. So here we go. So what's important to recognize here is, again, by category. And again, you can see the net requirements under maintain services by department. And I can refer you to the lines 21, 23, and 24 that shows where we have our overall increases, the revenues that are applied to those initiatives. So while we have in the service initiatives the changes, and again the large revenues that we're showing as we're for Bruce Works particularly, the $400,000 from reserves, and then we come back to our net change and the 2.9%. It's important to recognize that while we have here by expenditure type, and I take you back to the overall increase on line 24, the 981,000, and in that 2.99%, we are absorbing $1.8 million in changes to our salaries, wages, and benefits. So that was not done without some a lot of work by the directors and managers to be able to reap from a lot of the work that has been happening over the last couple of years, and particularly you can see that in our staff-related costs, the material, and in the transfer grants and financial charges. Some of those things that we want to highlight are of certainly the ecosystems, the energy savings project that we've been undertaking, and we're going to see the benefits of that long term. In the short term, of course, we are utilizing those savings to finance the project, but the number of the capital infrastructure that we were looking at, particularly at long-term care, the museum, and this facility, and specifically in long-term care, where we had aging infrastructure, where we had no reserves to be able to fund the replacement. So we're really looking at this project as a good news to be able to replace that aging equipment and to be able to fund it from the energy savings as well as the incentives that we were able to take advantage of. A reminder that last year there was a lot of work done out of our purchasing division and our IT division to introduce savings across the organization in telephone. And then, of course, the good work of the Rental Travel Mileage Committee that brought in and introduced a number of initiatives that created the savings across the organization in that respect. So those combined and other areas where we've seen efficiencies and have applied the lean processing has allowed us to absorb that $1.8 million of salaries and wages and benefits into that net requirement of $981,000. This worksheet, as I said, identifies where the pressure categories are and what is where the decisions have been made, and as I've indicated, that by expenditure, maintained services and the service initiatives are the two driving forces in that respect. And to just highlight the full-time equivalents and the changes, they've been all explained to you, and particularly within the human resources requests, the library, the museum, and then the adjustment to base in corporate services that has combined to increase the full-time equivalent to 4.14 or 0.77%. And then I'd like to move to the capital. If we present both, and then we can go back and have discussions. I don't know why that's
Doesn't want to show help.
doesn't want to cooperate. I don't have any more magic. It all looked good this morning. The gremlins. You adjusted it and it worked? Okay. Just give me one moment. Can you tell a joke or something, Mr. Warden?
I don't think that'd be a good idea.
All else fails. Is there anyone else having difficulty on their drive? No, the counselors are okay? All right. Just for me. Excellent. All right. So on the capital dashboard, again, this is showing your snapshot by departments and the net requirement. And I think most importantly, what I want to highlight is just in the summary of budget and the different categories that you can see what's driving it in the equipment and the technology, the vehicles and machinery, our building, our bridges and culverts, and as our county engineer spoke to that significant spike in 2018. And then what's important as we look to this is how can we sustain our capital? So you can see the net levy requirement in 2017, and when we go back to the overall consolidated, you'll be reminded of that capital increase that we were looking at of 1.2 million is here. And then it's important as we look towards 2019 and 2020 and the 4 years advanced as to can we sustain that and how does it manage with our current infrastructure. And we heard that words used yesterday and the deficiency in the infrastructure overall. And then the changes in transfer of reserves. And then here you can see what the actual dollar, what the changes from year over year, and then the net levy requirement of 1.2 or 12.56%, and where we're seeing those changes, and again, it's highlighting in our bridges and culverts, and then you can see the change that I spoke to yesterday in the technology and how it's important that as we move forward, but it's the reduction in the revenues has played a part on that as well. And so the summary, I'm going to have to do this again. So summary again, just to highlight the expenditures by type and where you're seeing in the pressure categories, again, very much maintained services with a couple of the initiatives in housing with the provincial legislated, and then the technology communications in our service initiatives, and the $50,000 council priority for building structure as the Port Elgin Land Ambulance Station. And overall, you can see the revenues, and then we remain back to the 12.7%. And if this 5-year capital were to be accepted, as you can see the significant increase in 2019, and then the changes in 2020. So for presentation purposes, it's important that you receive what our plans are, and then but certainly looking forward with the 5 years, there would be we would want to stabilize it. But for first recommendation, or for the first Passover, it was important that you see the the requirements that each of the directors are anticipating for their various needs over the next 5 years. So to return to where we started from yesterday when we began the presentations, this is a accumulation of all of the recommendations that you heard. The needs, the recommendations, this rain, it's very loud. So by department, the 981,000, the operational percentage change of 2.92. And in capital, the request, an increase of 1.2 million, or capital percentage change of 12.56, which would then require an increase of 5.1. As we pointed out yesterday, a 1% levy increase is $420,000. Also mentioned yesterday that we do not have our assessment growth numbers for 2018, but 2017 we had 1.02%, which was reduces basically the impact to our taxpayers by that 1%, the 420,000. So from the discussions today, and yesterday, there are a few items that we have put to the parking lot that we will bring back for council. Certainly one, Bruce Works, to provide that more detailed plan and what that the impacts it will be, because it is, while it is a investment, a capital investment, it isn't a 1-year investment. It will be ongoing with the subscriptions and the requirements as we move forward, and then how the capital needs would reduce. Secondly, in paramedic services under the health services umbrella, the cost for implementing 24/7 at our Chesley station is not included in this budget and will be brought back with more detailed financial, but estimated likely to exceed $400,000. But our Director McKeag will be bringing that back for your review. As well, under health services and long-term care in the capital portfolio, the cladding project for the facilities is also not included, and that will need to be addressed and brought forward as well. And the request for the organizational chart for the planning and development department was also noted to be brought back for your information. So if we go back and take a look at our operations, I think hopefully it is appreciated, the work that has been done, bringing in the lean processes and the savings and the efficiencies that have been able to be applied. And we're seeing the benefits of that in this 2018 draft budget, with a request overall of $981,000, and yet absorbing $1.8 million in salaries and wages as part of that. So that is a 2.9% increase. Is hopefully can be supported by this council. Under the capital portfolio, we, again, it's always important to look at the infrastructure and recognize the deficiencies. There are a couple of areas that could be considered here. In paramedic services, you will recall that the $259,000 change included a $250,000 transfer to reserves to initiate the Port Elgin station, and then $50,000 was to be drawn from that in 2018 to begin the site planning and architectural work. The recommendation that could be considered is that $50,000 be held within that budget for that purpose, and then we look at alternate financing for the project when and should it move forward. So that could see a reduction of $150,000. Certainly, the transportation side of it, they are undergoing some changes within the department as far as the methodology, and there may be opportunity to revisit that and to allow some stabilization during 2018. It is a significant increase, $500,000, and is certainly driving that overall increase in the capital. And with those remarks, I would pass it over to our CAO to provide further comment.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the parts from the perspective of the senior management team that are the most important, of course, always rest with the requests for additional human resources. And in this budget, there are effectively 2 full-time requests and then an adjustment from a part-time to a full-time in the library services. And there is just a reasoning for those requests. Certainly with the museum opportunity, we're confident that the need for having a presence from the county in terms of bequest planning, both for the museum, but it could also be extended to include the library services and library operations. And in year 1, in an effort to be conservative, we can't say that that position will pay for itself, but we can say beyond year 1 that there's every confidence that that position would not only pay for itself, but actually increase the donation line for the corporation as a whole. The part-time to full-time position for the library services, as you all heard in the last month, the library operations have received their SOLS accreditation, which is a very major accomplishment. And part of how they were able to reach that accomplishment is the changes that have been undergoing the operations in terms of how they're deploying the staff team. And in particular, when we have a number of supervisors that are all full-time and one part-time, that creates a dynamic that is an unnecessary complexity to the operations. And by making the requested modification, that you then have the ability to again provide more service to the front line. And I believe you're all of the same opinion that the library services provide profound and fundamental support to all in our community, but particularly those with social economic constraints. The final request for additional resources is in the HR department. And again, the work that department has undergone in the past 5 years has been quite remarkable. And one of the reasons that we're able to make a recommendation for a beginning point for the operational budget of 2.9% is because of the work that has been undergone by that department. The streamlining of many of our processes has had a dramatic effect. The changes to the recruitment process has also had a dramatic effect in terms of the quality and the skill set of our new recruits into the organization. And we continue to, I'll call it hobble, with the long-term care operations. When you see the projections for where we're sitting for Q3, you're going to identify very quickly that a lot of the work that has been done has improved the operations of the two homes, and we still have a lot of additional work to do in that regard. Part of that work is the centralized scheduling, and there is no doubt in anyone's mind that in the next year, as we move that initiative forward, that it will have an impact in the delivery of the human resources services. And additionally, how the final draft of Bill 148 and the Making Ontario Workplaces Better, how that will look, we don't know at this point, but even if it's 50% of the first draft that was before the provincial legislature, it's going to have a huge workload demand on the HR team as a whole. And I'm hopeful that that position in particular, that you will support that request for resources. The final series of comments are, again, a tribute to the senior management team and the work that they have done. The document that presents operational and capital, hopefully for all of you, will highlight the good work that's been done. The changes in how we work has started, and the fact, as Director Cobain has highlighted, the fact that we were able to absorb the salary and wage and benefit changes across the organization for the 660 full-time positions and part-time positions, along with the casual and temporary, is a recognition to the work of all of the directors, the managers, supervisors, and of course the frontline team. The economic development investment that all of you supported in 2015 is starting to pay dividends. We thought that we would see the impact of that within approaching 1 year from when the initiative was approved, in particular the Bruce Power, Bruce County Partnership Initiative of last fall. And in fact, we saw it 6 months into the program. And we are approximately 6 months ahead of where we thought we would be at this time, which has been a terrific gift, but it's also had a profound effect on the staff in the organization. I was teasing as we started the county engineer with great affection. That department is seeing firsthand the impact of the economic development program in terms of the demand on the resources and the permitting part of the house. The social services and housing part of the house are seeing a positive impact from the economic development investment, where the caseloads are trending down, which is, as I said yesterday, a profound thing for a county and extremely rare. The other areas, like paramedic services as an example, and of course planning and development, more importantly, are really having, again, a lot of additional resources being placed upon them because of the positive impact of the economic development side of the investment. Planning and development in 2017, how I would compare it, it's like getting from a 1960s Dodge vehicle and then getting in a 2017 GM vehicle. The difference in it's like going from 0 to 30 in 3 seconds. So that department has had a very, very busy year in 2017. And the positive is that a large part of the work that that department has done, we will see in terms of the growth factor for the county. We are anticipating that it will be approaching 1.5%, if not higher. But all of those things take resources, and they take the commitment of the leaders that are around the table and the commitment of the leaders that aren't at the table but are very, very loyal to the county. So we will take your direction. I'm very proud of the team, in particular in relation to the operational budget. We did not forget about the Chesley 24/7 program. That was to make sure that the committee could see where we're sitting now before we put that into the dynamic. So we will bring that back at the next meeting. And ideally that there is a healthy discussion about how the organization is going to start to put together a plan to address the capital side of the house. The document that Betty Ann and her team have put forward does a terrific job of really highlighting the differences between the impact of the operational part of our organization and the capital. So with that, Mr. Warden, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Kelly. So at this point, I will open it up to questions, comments, discussion. Who would like to start? Janice?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Kelly, with the two full-time positions and the one part-time turning into full-time, that doesn't account for the Highways Department with the two positions that were presented to us? Or does it?
Through you, Mr. Warden, the Highways Department, the position was already in the 2017 budget. It just has not been recruited.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And the HR position, what was that title again? What is it that you're looking for?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll defer to Marianne to make sure I don't misquote it.
Through you, Warden, compensation and benefits special analyst.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Next. Wow, you might get your wish here. I don't know. Betty Ann said no lunch unless people talk, so Paul?
Well, I had several notes and some suggestions, but after hearing the CAO there, I'm pretty much give up on that idea. There wasn't any much point in writing them down, but I want to be clear in my position on the Chesley station going 24/7. Like, I know we're live. That wasn't brought forward from Aaron Elserly, the folks at Chesley. It wasn't our concern, but it was announced here that was going to happen. He sat here and said that was going to happen. And now to see that it's not in the budget, and to think we can put $420,000 into the budget when I'm sure most councillors here today are hoping to find a way to get a little bit out of the budget. I don't see it coming back. I'm not saying that we're at all upset whether the station goes ahead or not, because I guess I'm saying before anyone ever said that station would go 24/7, someone should have done the math and realized, well, you know what, I guess we're not going to propose that because we can't afford it. I'm disappointed in the way it's being handled. It's not to slam at you, Kelly. No, please don't get me wrong. I don't see it going forward. Like, it's another percent. And I also, I guess, I'd like to see a final report on it someday, so maybe we can do it next year, the year after. But if we're struggling with the money to extend the hours, the operating hours of an existing station, what in the heck are we ever going to do to get a car at Sowell Beach that desperately needs to be there from June to August at least? And we can't even get we can't even get full-time people in Chesley. Out of curiosity, I'd like to see where Mr. Lux or something come up with that 420,000. Because to me, you're just taking some people that are already at home on call getting paid to be there full time. The car's there, the building's there, the heat's there, the gas is there. That $420,000 to have people there around the clock, that math blows my mind. So whether we got to get to the province or we got to get to the bottom of it, but we need a car at Solid Beach. That's very clear in my mind to start saving lives. That's enough of EMS for one day. Otherwise, they're doing a fantastic job.
Mr. Chair, if I can just make one comment, that we will bring back a full review in terms of how we got here. And second to that is we don't know, we're not confident, I'll put it that way, we're not confident at this point on how smoothly we're going to launch the centralized scheduling. So if there was support for us bringing back a report to give the summary, to highlight how did we get here, how did the report be brought forward in June, and then we're back talking about it in October, then we will do that. I do share the concern in terms of the Sauble Beach coverage area, particularly during the 12 weeks of summer. And I'll also share that we're pretty confident that we have a gap in the southern part of the county where every year we continue to fund cross-border billing with our great neighbors to the south of Huron County, and that's an area that we have potential that we need to address it. So.
Next, David?
Well, obviously, we have some work to do. I support the staffing changes in the consolidated budget and in the department areas. But over the last number of years, well, as long as I've been on council here, we've been able to come in at somewhere around 3 to 3.5%. So we do have some work to do, and that's where I'd like to see it come in again. If we can go back and do some work and have some idea of how we could get that down to that level of 3 to 3.5%, I think we'd be happy with that. So those are my comments.
Thank you, David. Milt?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Yeah, I concur with David on that number as well. And we do have to work together. I mean, we can go home to our local municipalities, and I admit the services here that we provide are important as the ones we provide at home. But our services are important too. Every bit as important. And so but we have to work together to get that budget. If you come into our municipality with a 5%, that means that we have to be looking at 2%. Because we don't want to come in at any more than around 3.5% either. So we all have to work to try and so we can bring in a respectable budget of in around that 3.5%.
Robert?
Yeah, I would like to see around 3.5%. Like, I am really satisfied being the mayor of South Bruce about the economic development that has happened within our municipality. We've had 2 major announcements, and another small one is the Formosa Brewery was even sold. So with economic development, of course, our assessments and so forth are going up. So then, as a result, like Saugeen Valley, we have to pay a little more. But however, I really believe that this economic drive to bring more businesses here will pay off, but I think we still have to try to come in around that 3.5%. And I think maybe the people really do expect an increase with minimum wage going up and everything else going up. So I don't think we'd get much flack if we could keep it down around that 3.5%, just like the last year.
Thank you. Ann?
It's tough because it's the old struggle with the infrastructure deficit on the capital, and we've all gone to the conferences and read the literature and the presentations on the, we'd have to raise taxes so high just to keep up with maintaining our infrastructure. So I think, we have to rely on government grants for that. We can't always be dependent on the property owners. So it's always a quandary. The 2.9% operating, is quite reasonable. But I think, again, 5.1 overall, I'd like to see it down if we can. And I know it's a tough choice. Your ask for full-time equivalents, I can see your reasoning, but I think maybe we have to revisit that. Might be the one area. And I'm like Robert, the economic development initiative has, I think, worked out really, really well. But again, then it's at the lower level for us in the municipality of Kincardine. There's increased immediate costs, just like you were saying, to get initiatives on the way, because we need our own infrastructure, whether it's residential or water and sewer and or planning, etc. So we will have additional costs at the lower level as well to try and keep up with the growth. So it is kind of a catch-22 situation, but so if savings can be found to get the overall reduced, I would like that as well.
So just one question, is that 3.5, does that include the growth, or is that on top?
Well, let's just start off with
Okay. The consummate politician, Milt McKeever. Mike?
I'm not any different than Milt or throughout here. I'm at 3.5. I think I know that there's a lot of, what I will say, there's a lot of exciting new things in this budget, I think, in different areas that, and I think we've seen that in past budgets. I mean, in the last 3 or 4 years, we've put a lot of strain and stress on our staff, expecting a lot and asking them to do a lot of different things, and they have stepped up and done that in so many ways. And I just want to say, I'm on for that. Thank you, because I know you put a lot of effort into this. The one thing I know we spoke a lot about economic development, and I think we're really on the right track. But there's one thing here that we often don't see, and I'll just, like I mentioned it, we'll build nearly 150 new single-family homes in Saugeen Shores this year. That in itself is a huge economic driver in the county. The people, the contractors that come from, they go past my place, I see them from Mount Forest, from Arthur. They're coming to Bruce County to work because there's opportunity here, and because we've helped create that opportunity. It's not all that we've done here, but, and when I see that, I know we talk often about Bruce Power and it's the big driver. That is not the, I see that now, we see the development in our community anyway. It's not all Bruce Power. In fact, I would say it's probably 50-50. It's other people coming to this community because they want to come to Bruce County. And so we've been very successful. I know we work hard at it. But I'll leave that question with you with the growth. I'm like Milt. Come back around 3.5, and we'll whittle it down or get to the figure that we're all going to like. One final comment. We struggled. I have in the past struggled with the way we presented this new format. This year, I was very comfortable with it and understood it much, much better. And The one thing I will say, there's so much information there that I'm jumping from pages all over the place and not following the speaker sometimes, but it's not a show of disrespect, it's just that, wow, there's a lot of information there. So thanks.
Good, thank you, Michael. I guess for clarification, we should give direction to staff if we're comfortable moving ahead with the full-time requests that are there. I think we have to give them direction today, as far as I'm concerned. Janice?
Sorry, I'd like to make my comments too about the overall. I think in South Bruce Peninsula, we're still holding out hope that maybe Bruce Power will bring some economic development to our town, because I don't think we've seen any yet. However, perhaps that'll come. I think I'm with all of you guys around. I'm closer to 3% than 3.5%, but I mean, I could certainly live with 3.5%. I think my biggest concern really is staffing. I understand we have put a lot of pressure on the staff, but we also have an awful lot of staff in Bruce County, so that's kind of my only. So I just kind of get a little bit willy when I see requests to add to the payroll. But overall, I'd be happy with 3%.
Okay, thank you. Milt, you had something?
One comment too. I would prefer not to give that direction on staff.
Okay.
Personally, I would like you to come back and with something for us to look at. And just to comment, just to follow up on Mike's comment on the budget, yeah, and I felt more comfortable with it as well. And the tabs down below are great. You can just go and bring up anything, and so I found it much easier, a lot easier to work with.
Good. Any other comments? Betty Ann?
It's good to hear that positive feedback, and I think what really made the difference is the tools that you're using for that, because we didn't change a lot in the operational, but what we did change was giving you the Surface Pros, or giving you so you're seeing it in Excel. When you're looking at it in PDF, it just doesn't have the same, but I think it's whatever works best for you, because I know we had Councillor Buckle and he liked the PDF format, and that's great. And so, but to give you both options, I think was really helpful. And certainly I just want to say to my finance team, in full disclosure, I know how to operate it, but they're the brains behind all the colors and the tabs, and so Susan Petrick and her team did incredible work, particularly, yes. Bringing in that capital tool it was our first year for it as well, but and I think we recognize that as senior management team, we'll take that, particularly the capital document, back and look beyond the first year, because that's what we're here today talking about, the first year. But as our CAO said, what we need, the work we need to do in years 2, 3, 4, and 5 to make sure that it's sustainable. So it's good to hear that feedback, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, Ann.
I just wanted to ask, so do you have to have a certain type of laptop for the tabs and everything to work properly? Because we used to have the iPads and they wouldn't quite do that, I guess.
That's right. The Excel really doesn't operate well on an iPad, so the laptop or the Surface gives you that capability.
Yeah, so any laptop would
Any
be
laptop, any laptop will do, as long as I haven't hidden a wrong worksheet that you need, or just playing around with the plus minus. So.
Okay, thank you. I find it very good. I would like if. So is it more expensive to offer this level of detail than the traditional, like what I have seen in the past at, say, lower tiers? Is it, or is it just a matter of getting used to it?
It is an Excel spreadsheet that was developed in-house by the finance team, and I did last year have the opportunity to present our format and our budget to your lower tier treasurers, and there was certainly some interest in it. It does take some time to develop the structure and put that together, but as Councillor Smith said, there is a lot of information into it, and hopefully you do explore the other tabs because there's a lot of the details are in there.
Okay, thank you.
Paul?
One thing in the budget that I was really pleased to hear yesterday was Mrs. McDonald was talking about social housing. Social housing is something, in my opinion, we haven't talked enough around here. I think the last project, Mike, when did we open that project in Saugeen Shores? Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago? And how? Yeah. Well, and then we took on the Rotary project, but I mean, our numbers are going up, our waiting list, the need for social housing in Bruce County, but I guess at least in 2018, a few years ago, we looked at those structures, and 2 or 3 of our existing buildings was recognized then that they're not worth putting any more repairs in. They're beyond insulating and windows. Dick Verrips was on after he retired, was on a committee in the province that was trying to retrofit some, you remember,
Yeah.
Mitch?
Yeah.
Some buildings, and I know there was one that I totally forgot that even existed in Chesley, and it's got to the age and the small unit, it's not viable to maintain. So I'm really happy that we're going to look at that, maybe sell them off, or I think your narrative talked about selling them off or closing them, and let's get on. In my opinion, the next few years, we need to get on, start the process. You're starting the process to see where the demand is. Well, obviously the demand's, I'm sure the document's going to show you the demand's in King Garden or Saugeen Shores. And we need to get some plans and try and find some land and get some more social housing built and get rid of some of the atrocities that we have. Well, that was my pitch for social housing. I sure hope we can move forward on that. I'm happy what Ms. McDonald's proposed. Hey, it wouldn't be right if I didn't take a little bit of a go at the highways. As chair, I think it's my obligation.
I agree, sir.
How about him?
And I know you're not, don't wish to micromanage, but, and I hear council wants to get the increase down to 3.5 or 3, and I support that for sure. But I noticed in highways, Brian, you had 925,000 for capital. And I think under that capital, I wrote down that it was mainly 2 tandems and a loader, and I think a little bit, I'm not so sure if that would go into reserves for a future grader. And I support that. However, maybe is there a possibility of looking at a 1-year reprieve on that not all the 925, but 420 of it, that's 1%. That'd be your generous donation towards the program. Because your trucks, I guess I'd be interested to know in that 9.25 was 2 new tandem plows. How old are the ones that you're retired? Because I thought we got a little bit ahead of that by the unfortunate fire in Wyerton. We purchased a couple in 17, plus we ended up with a couple more. So I don't think the fleet, as it stands, when those trucks arrive, I think they're just arriving now, are here, are going to be quite as old as they were a year ago. So could we possibly forego at least 1 tandem or a couple of tandems in 2018? Something to think about. Thanks, Brian.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. A very valid comment, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we shall be looking again at our equipment. If I can offer, we do tender regularly to find out what the private sector wants to supply for tandem truck and plows. And there is not much interest. Consequently, there is an obligation on the department to have units available. But naturally, we will look into it and take a look at the year, age, hours on our fleet and provide a report.
Thank you, Brian. Any other comments? Mike?
Just one, and I just wanted to mention it because I know I was one of the ones that was apprehensive a long time ago about this health services department, about how it did, and I really think I'm glad that you persevered, Kelly and Michael, to bring that together, because I think you really see some opportunities here to make to provide that service better and cheaper. And I know it was a lot of work and a challenge, and I was often apprehensive about it because I had some, what I thought at the time were good arguments, but I guess they weren't all that good.
Any other comments? Well, I've got a few. First and foremost, economic development. I think we're not lucky. I mean, we've put a lot of time and effort into this, but there's a little luck that comes with the initiative that we've had. And I agree, Mike. It's just not Bruce Power, and I see it at my real estate office in Point Clark. We have people moving into our area that are just wanting to move to Bruce County. And economic development, I think, we haven't seen, the full potential of it. I think the next few years in Bruce County are going to see a lot of development. And Mike, with 150 in Saugeen Shores, I know we're pushing 50, and in Ripley we've got a couple subdivisions that are going to come into play in the next little while, and people want to move to Bruce County, and I think we're very fortunate. And I think we have to be ready for them, and I believe we are. I know, Chris, you and your department have had a lot of work before you. I recognize that, and I know it's been very difficult. But with that, I think we have a lot of opportunity for businesses and individuals, and health services and land ambulance. I mean, I think we're just going to get busier, and to what Kelly's saying, I think we're going to see more strain on our EMS folks. I think that's inevitable with growth. And I'm liking what I'm seeing and hearing with regards to our long-term care facilities. I think we're in a really good place right now, Michael, and I have full faith in you taking us to the next step, without a doubt. Obviously, HR, with all of this growth and all this change, you've seen a lot of work too, Marianne, within your department, and I think we'll see more. And to try and facilitate our younger generation folks, their expectations are a heck of a lot different than us folks sitting around the table, and I think we as council have to recognize that and adapt to that. So under your leadership, I think you will take us in the right direction. Christine, that was an awesome budget presentation. For the size of the budget you have and the moving parts, that was a heck of a budget you put together. And social services, with all the things that are going on, we're going to have some negative things, and I know just in Ripley alone, we're seeing the impact of people struggling, and drug and alcohol addiction is a big thing that we as council, I think we have to, have a look at that, because we have people struggling, and 3.5% for a lot of people is 3.5% that a lot of people just can't afford that. So I believe 3.5% is fair. But like Paul said, we have to look at getting some of these developers to build some social housing in our communities. And I think, Christine, under your leadership, if we can find ways to get these developers to come and develop and put roofs over some of these people's heads, I think is very important. So, and I know I was picking on you, Kathy, with regards to your and I will do whatever council wishes. If it's council's wish to, I will support that position. And you look at economic development, and I agree, you need museums to help attract people to your communities. And I think we have a lovely museum, and whatever it takes to make it successful, I'm willing to listen. And Brian, I'll just leave it at that. And Melissa in the library, and again, this is another that obviously sitting on the library board, this is a necessity for our community, and to provide those services for those people that need it the most. And so I think we as a library board and as council have to support these initiatives. I'm very pleased with the way our libraries are working. I know these two individuals here, it reminds me of Marzio and Ken back in the days, just a different twist on things, but I'm enjoying being at the board and seeing how much fun you ladies are having, and it's fun fun being a part of that. So, and Betty Ann and the team for putting this together. It was a monumental task, and I want to thank you for that. And it was a pretty good budget coming in at 5.2. I tried to get a pass for you, but it didn't work, so. It's not too late. It's not too late, no. So anyways, those are my comments. So I guess direction today, what I'm hearing is to go back come back at 3.5, and we'll go from there. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, Kelly, under your leadership, where we stand today, where we were and where we are. I want to just congratulate you for all you have done in your leadership of Bruce County. So those are my comments. Any other comments before we adjourn? So next up is 11:45 at the Best Western for the awards. Motion to adjourn. And